This is the select board agenda for August 13th, 2024. We're starting at 6:32. This meeting is virtual via Zoom. Please be advised that this meeting is being broadcast live via Zoom. It is also recorded for playback video on demand viewing at hwcam.org. Please note that other than call to order, all times are estimated. So let's start. Open the meeting at 6:32. Why did that disappear again?
I'm just pulling up the amended agenda here.
Just while he's pulling up are we moving on to the appointments? I had to get up real quick.
We need a roll call being on Zoom, is that right? For attendance?
Yes.
Gary
Peter
Cheeseman's
Clay's
here.
Peter Clay's here.
Deirdre Parati.
Ben Timon.
Karen Anger.
All right.
Okay, public input, 10 minutes is reserved for public input, 2 minutes per person. A person may speak only once. All participants wishing to address the select board during public comments may do so via Zoom by virtually raising their hands. Speakers must identify themselves by name and street address. The select board may not deliberate or vote on matters discussed during public comment, but are not on the agenda.
Don't see any hands.
Any hands for public comment?
No hands.
No hands.
All right, no cars. Reports and announcements, anybody?
There are none.
And no correspondence. So let's turn on to new business. Let's start with appointments. A, Wenham Fire Department Provisional Call Firefighter appointment, Zach W. Schutz.
Yep. So this is provisional call firefighter as mentioned, pending his entry and completion of the firefighting academy and a COLA report. Corey report.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move that we appoint Zach W. Schultz as a provisional call firefighter.
Gary seconds.
Any discussion? All right, we'll vote. I vote yes.
Deirdre, yes.
Ben,
Gary,
yes.
Karen, yes.
Okay, so let's move down to B. Affordable Housing Trust appointments, Judith Bubrisky, Kristen Crockett, Nicole Roebuck.
Just for point of clarification on B and C, Mr. Chair. On B, there are 2 seats and 3 candidates. So similarly on C, there is 1 seat and 2 candidates. C, we have a recommendation from the Conservation Commission. And B, we do not have any official recommendation. There are 3 candidates and 2 seats. So in this situation, the board would need to select 2 of the candidates for appointment to fill both seats. I will also note that it does not appear that all interested individuals were able to make it tonight. So, I'll leave it up to the board to decide how they'd like to proceed.
Discussion by anybody?
Starting with B,
B.
I would definitely support Nicole Roebuck and Judy Bobrisky that would represent the only positions in town, whereas Kristen Crockett certainly has a great resume, but I think recently we appointed her to 2 other committees already.
So I would disagree with that premise. I think Kristen was recently appointed to Wish and Cultural Council, but those are sort of minimal responsibility committees, and I don't think that should be a criteria. I think we also need to look at the length of the number of terms. I was trying to find out how many terms or how many years Judith has been on the AHT, as well as other members of the committee, because it seems to me that the committee, any committee, could benefit from some turnover and some new candidates, as well as our stated goals in the past. I've heard multiple times before and after I was elected about bringing new people into boards and committees. So I think we need a little fuller discussion.
So, so who would you suggest, Deirdre?
I would suggest, well, again, I'm still not clear on how many terms Judith has served already. So that's one
2
question.
terms. Two,
How many?
2 terms. Two terms.
Is 6 years.
Yes.
So then I think I would be in favor of some turnover. So my recommendation would be Nikki Roebuck and Kristen Crockett.
Ben? Karen?
Having read the resumes and what was submitted, I would support Judy Bobrisky and Nicole Roebuck.
Karen?
I read all of the resumes. I've actually worked with 2 of the ladies or have known them a little bit, and would also support Judy and Nicole.
And so would I. So, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion then. I move that the select board appoint Judy Bobrisky and Nicole Roebuck to the Affordable Housing Trust for a term ending the June 30th, 2027. That sound right?
Do we have a second?
I second.
All right, let's vote. Peter Clay says yes.
Gary, yes.
Ben, yes.
Karen, yes.
I will abstain.
All right, let's move on to the Conservation Commission. One appointment candidates are Jacqueline Leclerc and Patrick Wilson, and as Steve said, that the Conservation Commission has recommended Jacqueline Leclerc. Discussion?
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
In Chair Colrusso's letter to us or memo to us, he indicated that the Conservation Commission recommends Ms. Leclerc, but he didn't indicate whether that was unanimous or whether there was a vote, and if so, what the vote tally was. I don't know if that's information that anybody has. I wasn't able to see whether the meeting was televised or on.
I believe there was one. It was a split vote, 1 in opposition. But if you guys can continue your conversation, I can check and be back in 30 seconds.
Okay, thanks.
I read the information on both candidates, and I do not know them, nor have I ever worked with them. So I will lean on the commission's recommendation on that.
I watched the Conservation Commission meeting last night and listen to the interviews, and I would fully support the recommendation of the commissioners.
Jacqueline.
Yes.
And likewise, I would welcome Patrick Wilson back into government, but looking at the task ahead for the Conservation Commission, that Jacqueline certainly has a very robust and up-to-date scientific background. So I would support Jacqueline.
I think we should just wait for Steve. Kind of unusual to have a meeting where we have nobody watching. Who's making those sounds?
I don't hear them. I'm not sure.
I don't hear him, Peter. Someone's going on at your house.
Must be. So Steve, it's really oh, he's not there. Joe,
Yes.
isn't it weird that you get Michelle sends out stuff to me and I can't open them? So I have to send them to my Gmail account?
Yeah, it's a separate account. That is, yeah, that's, I'm not sure what's going on there.
So I
But
thought that was
Kate-
just me. That is also me. I have the same problem.
You're not able to open the PDFs.
Nope. I have to send them all to my Gmail
Nope.
account.
Promote
Okay.
Judith. I believe it's 4-2. Joe, can you promote Judith?
Yes.
Can't
I
get a
was
hold
say
of Kate, but Judith was, I believe, there. So
Super
All right.
Trillia also has her hand up as well, Mr. Chairman, just so you know.
She does?
Yes. Go over Judith right now.
Shall we, well,
Judith, are you here?
Can you hear me now, Joe?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to let you know that I'm here when you said nobody was watching you.
okay.
do you
Didn't
know
want
the
Lonely.
Judith, do you know the vote count from last night? We were hearing it was 4-2.
I have no idea. I was not there.
Okay. All right.
It was 4-2.
All right. So 4-2 is confirmed.
All right, so do we have a motion for Conservation Commission candidate Jacqueline Leclerc?
I will say, like, before a motion's made, an additional piece of information, the feedback I got from Kate before she left was that the commission said that they were both very qualified, and they would love that if that could be an associate position. So we're going to take a look at the charge and and see. So that could be a request coming back to the board for an alternate if that's in the charge.
In the charge meeting, we could make it part of we could make a motion to that effect, or
No. I just, I guess I read into the question of if it was a unanimous or a split vote being, who is more qualified. And I think that, it being split and the comment being that they're both very qualified makes, both of them good candidates with the recommendation falling towards, Jacqueline Leclerc.
All right, so do we have a motion? Or I move that that we appoint Jacqueline Leclerc to the Conservation Commission for a term, and I have no idea.
July 1, 2024
July 1. Go ahead.
through June 30th, 2027.
through June 30th, 2027.
Gary seconds.
Discussion or further discussion?
All right,
Um,
let's go ahead, Ben.
I think we're fortunate to have two very highly qualified candidates, and certainly Ms. Leclerc's resume is impressive and spot on with a lot of the issues that the Conservation Commission has to deal with. Having said that, I support Patrick Wilson for the position, both because he also has a lot of experience in the land use area generally, and quite a bit of experience in town government, including on the select board. And I think the commission would, benefit greatly to have him back. So I recognize that there may be a majority for Ms. Leclerc, and I think she'd be excellent, but I just wanted to state for the record my support for Patrick Wilson.
Any other discussion? So we have a motion. It's been seconded. So we'll move vote. Peter Clay votes yes in favor of Jacqueline Leclerc.
Gary, yes.
Deirdre, yes.
Ben, no.
Karen, yes.
And further to the point you were making, Ben, want to thank Kristen Crockett and Pat Wilson for running or volunteering to for these positions. We're very lucky when we have more people seeking appointment than there are spots. All right, let's go to D. Appointing Dean W. Peterson as the police chaplain. Do we have any discussion on this one?
The 1-year appointment, I believe. So it will be through July 1, 24 through June 30th, 25.
All right, I move that we appoint Dean W. Peterson, police chaplain through June 30th, 2025.
Gary
Second.
seconds.
All right, we're going to vote. Peter Clay says yes.
Deirdre, yes.
Gary, yes.
Ben, yes.
Karen, yes.
All right, note it was unanimous. All right, now the big B. Discussion and potential vote to sign Hamilton Wenham Public Library Condensing Unit Replacement Project Agreement dated August 13th, 2024.
Yep. So as the board is aware, the Hamilton Wenham Public Library is a shared service. Wenham is the lead in this service, and this is an opera project for Wenham and a traditionally funded capital project through free cash for Hamilton. The town of Wenham dedicated $80,000 of ARPA funds, which is 1/3 of the $240,000 totally allocated to the project. However, we ran into some unforeseen interior issues, like in the walls with the refrigerant lines. So the project became more costly than originally anticipated. Luckily, the problem unit, there were 2 units. We were originally going to replace both units. However, the problem unit, we were still able to replace just the problem unit with a bid amount of $194,000 to ATCO Incorporated. We conducted a competitive bid process. They had to contract with the prevailing wage and comply with mass procurement law. And so that's the contract that you have before you to replace the problem, I guess what they call it, a condensing unit on the roof of the library, with Wenham contributing 1/3 of $194,000 and Hamilton contributing the rest.
Any discussion? Gary?
Just a quick question, just for the public, all these contracts have been reviewed by KP Law and the town procurement officer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, Joe. I can't see what I'm making a motion on. Please.
So Peter, the motion will go like this. It will go, I move to sign the contract with Hamilton Wenham Public Library Condensing Unit Replacement Project agreement dated August 13th, 2024 with ATCO Incorporated.
So moved.
I second. Any discussion? All right, let's vote. Peter Clay says yes.
Deirdre, yes.
Gary, yes.
Ben, yes.
Karen, yes.
All righty, move on to C. Discussion and potential vote to permit the Wenham Museum to include town-owned property in a historic walkthrough and install a 5x8-inch sign containing a QR code with information about the property. Actually, this is very cool.
Yes, I'm not sure if everyone got a chance just to read the request, but it sounds like the Wenham Museum is putting together a historic tour around town, and they would like to include some Wenham town-owned property in that tour, and permission to put a QR sign so the folks on the tour can scan it with their cell phones and get information.
Yep. Hugh Peters Monument. Gary, where is that? Is that right? Wenham Lake?
Right, that's the big stone next to Wenham Lake.
Okay, got it.
And a quick question. So are we voting on, this is going to be the one sign on the town hall property? Is that what they're actually asking for?
Well, permission to include the property on their tour, so I guess to be able to
Right.
visit it, and also to put the sign probably on like a little metal stand, I'm guessing, with a little 5x8 index card, similar size, with a QR code so that you can scan and read or maybe hear about, I'm not sure what the QR code is going to activate, but maybe it's a short video or audio clip.
Yes,
I think
so,
it should look like
but is it one sign or at each location?
each
A sign at each
location.
location.
Do we have a cemetery commission concurrence?
We do not. What's the date of the, Joe, can you scroll up? What's the date of the tour? Yeah, I have to go back. I'm not sure the date of the tour if we have time, but that was my oversight. I didn't realize the cemetery
Right.
commissioner would need to be.
And I took it, this is a permanent, it's not a date for the tour, but a permanent
Oh, my
available.
understanding was it was just a temporary sign for the tour. However long this exhibit's going to run.
Okay.
I certainly can get more clarification. The way I read it was that it was an exhibit that they were running, and
Right.
the sign would only stay for. Is that now your understanding, Gary?
No, I just wasn't quite clear, but I certainly support this. This is great initiative to highlight some of the town's sites. So thank you to the Wenham Museum.
If you need clarification, I can get that, or does the
No.
board want to grant permission for the town owned, and I can come back with cemetery commission authority for the cemetery specifically.
That
We could probably vote to support it, and then maybe in the motion say conditioned upon cemetery commission approval with respect to the sign at the cemetery. Something like that.
Yep.
And does the permanence of the sign change? Just want to make sure I'm giving the authority in line with what the board believes.
I was going to suggest in the motion that we add the word temporary, because my assumption is that these would be up only for as long as the exhibit is in place. And I think I'd personally want to think more about the request if it were to be, a permanently installed QR code on any
Yeah, I mean,
town.
yeah. Honestly, that's the way I read it. My brain didn't even go to permanent, but I can see why it could be a possibility. I believe if you did put those stipulations with the cemetery commission and add the word temporary, that would take care of it.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, though? Why wouldn't we want something that's permanent?
I'm just thinking, we'd want to think about the aesthetics of it, where exactly on the town hall property, for example, it's going to go, where it's going to be installed, how it's going to be installed. The museum has sent us mock-ups of the QR code itself, but I think I'd want to know more about those details if it were to be permanent. And I'm not saying that the HTC would have necessarily jurisdiction over something, over a permanent sign. Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. But if it were permanent, I think I might want to hear from them as well. But my assumption is it's temporary, but I certainly could be wrong about that.
I mean, to the extent that we had permanent signs with a QR code at all of these wonderful places, that just means that people, our residents can take a tour whenever they want.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be a great thing if it's a permanent tour. I think it'd be great. I just don't really see the details on where the permanent QR code placard or what have you would actually be. I think I'd want to know, where is this permanent fixture going to be?
Another consideration is upkeep. The signs get faded over time, weathered, maintaining the link, just things like that to think about if you're going to allow permanence.
Well, the closest analogy I can come up with is what Audubon's done with Cedar Pond. When you walk around there, the signs that actually explain stuff, and they do have QR codes on some of them.
Peter, just a heads up, Karen has her hand up.
Yep. Karen?
Yeah, I'm fully supportive of this. I understand both aspects of what Peter and Ben are saying. I think we should have this 100% in a permanent structure. However, 4 or 5 years from now, QRL codes are obsolete, and now we've got this box in the middle of town hall. And so if we can have a long, a date that is attached to a temporary sign that doesn't necessarily have an end date, that would be beneficial. I'd hate to approve something that is permanent, and then is obsolete and not maintained. A tree falls on it. Where does it come from? Who pays for it? That kind of thing. But a temporary structure, I'm fully supportive with the idea of let's constantly make sure that we're evolving in times. If QRL codes are swapped out, let's do the newest and greatest thing. I think Peter's nailed it by saying it allows people to be able to enjoy the town. It allows people to have an understanding of local history. So as far as that goes, I understand both aspects of that.
Any comments, Deirdre or Gary?
Deidre?
I'm fully supportive. I think it's a great idea. I actually would hope that it becomes permanent at some point. And I think goes very nicely with a lot of the strategies in the master plan around preservation of history and historic resources.
So Steve, can we go back to the library folks or the Wenham Museum folks and ask them, have a discussion? I'd be more than happy to have a discussion with them as
I can
well.
reach it. Specifically on the permanence.
Yep. And Gary's got a question or a comment.
Yes, I'd also like to see, fully support this, but how are we going to blend this in or supplement it with the town branding and the Concom signs and so forth? If we're going to try to unify our tourist message.
Well, the person who's doing that is Kate.
Yes.
So we should probably have her chase this down with the museum.
Yeah, I'll make first contact. So are you proposing to preliminarily approve it as a temporary sign, and you want me to further inquire about, possibly making it permanent and how we can tie it into the town's branding?
Sounds good to me.
So Ben has his hand up, Peter.
And
I think this is sort of following on what the direction you might have been heading in, Peter. I think I'd like to get a little bit more information from through Kate or from the museum, just on the couple of questions that we've raised. Because even though I was suggesting earlier that perhaps we would make a motion that says temporary, I mean, if that's not the intent, then it would probably be not a good motion to make. And so maybe more information would be helpful, and then we can align that with whatever decision we want to make as a board next time.
so our next meeting is the 27th, right?
Correct.
Can we just chase this down and
Yeah, no problem. The 27th.
yeah.
Yep.
Is everybody okay with that? Okay. So we will table the vote to permit the Wenham Museum to include town-owned property and historic walkthrough and install a 5x8 sign containing a QR code with information about the property. All right, D. Discussion and potential vote to implement the select board liaison program.
Yeah, so this is brought back, but one of our first goal setting programs. Ms. Anger requested that we pick the low hanging fruit and get this going immediately. So this is being brought back for the select board's consideration, whether they as a whole would like to re-implement the program and then further have discussion on what boards and committees and potentially members. But you don't have to get that far tonight. Just we could start the discussion though.
Well, does everybody have a committee to liaison with?
I think
Peter,
first Peter asked for a motion to re-implement the select board liaison program because it's been somewhat abandoned, and then we talk about the committees and representatives.
I move to re-implement the select board liaison program.
Do we have to second?
Yep.
Okay.
I second.
And take a vote. Peter Clay says yes.
How about discussion?
Okay, you want to discuss?
Yes, please.
Have at it.
All right. So I have a couple of concerns here that what the role of the liaison actually is going to be, because if a liaison attends a meeting, they are not a member of the meeting, so is limited to listening. and if would want to speak, could probably only properly with OML speak during the public comment period. And then you get into the gray area of, are you representing the select board or not? And you're not, but then you are present with that resume. Then if the liaison brings information back to the select board, I have a concern that that kind of bypasses the town administrator and also cuts out the role of the that particular committee chair. Because as we voted in the last town meeting to more formalize the structure of the committees, it's really the committee needs to take a vote and a vote for the chair to communicate that up to the town administrator and the select board if there's select board action to be taken. Also, with the 5 members, and I saw it with the 3 members, we need to keep the information balanced amongst all the members. And when an issue or a decision comes up to the board, I don't want to have any individual select board member to have already had greater information or have had an opportunity to influence that committee in that liaison role before the board comes, before the matter comes back up to the select board. So I think I don't want to take Karen's words, but I think, I felt it and I've seen it on other boards that it's difficult for individual select board members to gather up all the information they feel they need. But I think we could improve that if we have all agendas emailed to the select board members individually, so we can pick and choose which ones we would want to review afterwards on Zoom. And also, I would think that we a bit more workload on us, but I'd like to see all minutes automatically come to the select board so that we can review them rather than having to go individually through all the committees on the website to pick out the different minutes. And then finally, I think, we do have a couple exceptions here. So the Affordable Housing Trust does have a select board member, but that's by state law. We have a ex officio select board member on the WISH committee. And I think that was originally set up because there were monies being spent because of Privacy Act and that's donations that weren't quite out in the public view. And of course, we do have the position from the select board on the Veterans Committee, which I think was traditional because the select board wanted to be able to ensure that the second largest, other than the town meeting, that the Memorial Day and Veterans Day activities, big public events, had the townwide support. So I'm not too hard on liaisons because I think it imbalances the committee possibility. And also, I want one focal point, the town administrator, to be the conduit for all information. So both the town administrator has full knowledge and they're not bypasses on them. So that's my speech.
Ben?
Thank you, Gary. I share some of your concerns about the implementation of this. I think the concept has a lot going for it, but I do worry that the devil's in the details and that in the implementation that some of those issues could arise. I also think that with respect to communications coming from other boards to the select board, there might be some benefit for there to be a designated select board member to whom another board could approach with the question, an issue, a proposal for coordination or what have you. But then I think that probably the appropriate channel for those kinds of communications would be chair to chair. And we've seen some examples of, not nothing too recent, but I can think of an example or two within the last couple of years where, a member of a board may have communicated something and that person wasn't the chair, and it should be the chair that's sort of speaking for the board, and probably chairs of those boards should communicate formal, communications with the chair of the select board. So I think it can become a little bit, could become a little muddied, this liaison program. And then I also wonder about the expectations in terms of time commitment. All of us are busy, and speaking for myself, sometimes it's a struggle to, even fulfill responsibilities of this board. So, you may have some liaisons who are, much more active in their liaising with a board, and then others who aren't as active, and that creates a little bit of an imbalance as well. So I'm not convinced that we need this badly enough that it would outweigh some of the implementation problems that I foresee, similar to those that Gary's identified.
So can I just ask a question, probably of you, Gary? What was the intent of this? And how long was it? When did it get started?
We have not had it in the last 4 years. Prior to that, I'm not sure.
Okay, so any thoughts, Karen, Deirdre? Actually, I'll just jump in and say I kind of agree with Ben and Gary that it isn't necessary and can be problematic.
I think that I'm torn because I think the goal of improving communication and creating linkages between boards and committees, particularly with the select board, is an important goal. And I'm not sure how effectively we can do that differently than this, though I agree with a number of the issues that Gary raised, and I would not want to see the liaison take the place of the conduit from the chair through the town administrator to the board. I think that would have to be absolute. So I'm kind of torn, but I also think, even though you said it's structural, but there are some committees that have select board members on it. So there's already sort of disproportion with that. So is there a way to retract those seats if we think that liaisons are not the way to go, so that everything is fair and balanced?
Gary?
Well, as I said, the Affordable Housing Trust membership of this, it says as the chief executive has to have a representative, and that's state law. So we can't retract that one. Certainly the Wish Committee, it's ex officio. So I'm not sure, that ex officio liaison really has that much to do in there. And then the Veterans Committee, I think that's just tradition. And certainly we have an exceptionally well-run Veterans Committee, and that can probably do without the select board membership, although Ben's the current one there, and there are some advantages as far as the big, Memorial Day event.
I'm sure there are. It's just if we're saying liaisons isn't the way to go, then I think that's an issue that there are some with liaisons. Does the Affordable Housing Trust require it to be a select board member, or can it be a member of staff?
No, it's the state law says it has to be a member of the executive authority of the town, a select board or city council. So, but the others we can dispense with if everybody agrees.
Karen? Thoughts?
Yeah, I'm listening to Gary and Ben. They make a lot of really good points. I also agree with Deirdre that if you're only gonna do a few, you should only do the one that's state required. So I'm leaning more towards there shouldn't be a select board member on the individual committees at this point outside of the Affordable Trust. And Gary, that is you, correct?
Yes, currently, yes.
So the ones that are in question are
Wish
Veteran,
and
Wish.
Ridge.
Okay.
Well, and I guess further to that, if affordable housing trust is required, and that's the sole one that we end up with, then perhaps there should be a rotation that is, 1 year, one member, so that everyone has the same opportunity.
Quite so.
I buy into that. Ben,
Right. I mean, I don't want to, I didn't intend to contribute to a conversation that concludes with my liaison position to the VetCon being eliminated. I wouldn't want that, but I understand the Deirdre's comment regarding consistency. So I don't know that I would be in favor of taking any vote now that changes the status quo. I think, we want to
But
maybe think
certainly,
about what's
sorry,
that?
certainly outside the scope of the agenda item.
Thank you. Good.
Discussion
Right.
at this point.
Right. So personally, I would be comfortable myself, either tabling D or taking a vote in the negative with respect to D. Either one of those options seems right to me.
anyone else?
I guess I would prefer to defer it and not take any action and sort of leave it for people to think through a bit more, perhaps come back with definitives.
You ready for a motion then, Peter?
Yep.
I move that we table item D and E.
Second.
All right, let's take a vote. Peter says yes.
Deirdre, yes.
Gary, yes.
Ben, yes.
Karen, yes.
Okay, so I was the one who asked for F to be on there. Discussion and potential vote to amend the recently adopted flag policy to include a clause allowing the flag to be flown at half-mast for individuals who meet specific criteria. Having talked about that with Gary, nope, not happening. Go ahead, Gary.
So perhaps should explain. So this came up, I think, a year or so ago, and we did some research on it. So actually, the United States Code delegates the half-staff decision to the President of the U.S. or a state governor for specific positions. And at that time, the town went out and bought the black mourning drapes to put over the town hall front door. So that perhaps is an alternative we can continue with for individuals that we think ought to be recognized at their passing. Of course, traditionally the town has put the American flag to half staff. That decision made at a lower level than the select board as to who to win, and I think that was mostly for town veterans and occasionally for ex-employees or long-term residents. So perhaps we need a policy on the drapes, but I don't think we can have a written policy that supplements the Congress.
All right. Gary, that doesn't sound like something very hard to write up.
We can work on it. For the Drake policy.
Yep. Okay, so old business. Continued discussion of FY25 goals and objectives.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman,
Joe's
if
got
I
his
may,
hands up. Yeah.
I think we just have to, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, we have another agenda topic that's on the amended agenda, I believe, regarding the climate action sustainability.
Oh,
committee.
right.
Here, let me
You
just,
pull the agenda up, Joe.
yep.
All right, so I'll just give a little background on this. On Thursday, I believe I received a letter from Sue Petrolia on behalf of the Wenham Climate Action Sustainability Committee, requesting that we submit an application for a grant to fund a community-based clean energy plan. The problem with that is that we had already prepared an application to replace 16 iron rail windows with the same grant. The grant's for $50,000. Both projects are expected to be about $50,000, and you cannot exceed that amount. So it's a one or the other situation. After reviewing the climate action committee meeting, it seemed that they had some concerns that came with their recommendation. They chose to pursue the request. However, some of the concerns were that, this community-based clean energy plan would deal only with energy, and that that would be a relatively narrow scope with not a lot that the town could do, where it's already pursuing a CCA plan, which would grant our residents the opportunity to source, more economically smart or cheaper clean energy, and to be able to adjust based on that. And also the concern that it deals, narrowly with just energy, and that is leaving out other important things like water and the environment, air quality, and other things like that. So, and further, there was the concern with we're unsure with how it fit into kind of the grand scheme of things, like how urgent. They didn't know much about the Iron Rail project, how urgent it was, and kind of why it was prioritized for this grant program. Are they concerns around that, about not pushing that program out if it was of importance to the town? I will say that the Iron Rail windows are something that Mike has brought to my attention every year since I've been here, and then several years prior he's been trying to get funding to replace these windows. So the original windows, lead paint, they're inoperable. You can't open them. They're single pane, original to the structure. They leak, so they really need to be replaced. It's just that due to the nature of the building, they've never boiled up to the level of getting it replaced through our capital program. So this is a unique opportunity, a grant program that typically doesn't cover windows in a situation like this. So, for those reasons, my recommendation would be to stay with the Iron Rail. However, I believe Sue's here, Peter, if you wanted to recognize her, and the board can have a discussion, and staff is willing to prepare. The Iron Rail is already prepared. We're currently drafting the community-based clean energy plan grant. So, we're willing to do whatever the select board would like to do in this situation.
So should we hear from Sue? Maybe like 3 or 4 minutes? Please?
Yes. Sue, are you here?
Yes, sorry, I needed to be allowed in, I guess. I don't know if I want to be a panelist. Do I want to be a panelist?
You don't have to. We can still hear you.
First of all, so our grant, the Wenham Climate Action Sustainability Committee, our mandate, the number one thing is to recommend and establish a climate action plan and sustainability goals, performance indicators, and priorities for implementation. So we have no way of doing that unless we have some sort of metric and way to measure what are the towns, not just the municipality, but the town, including all the residences, are doing, what they're using, what the metric is, how we'll know, and where we should go forward. Without a plan, we're just floating around, which is fine. This is also a rare opportunity to do a municipal clean energy grant. I understand the windows. Believe me, I did all the green community stuff the first 4 years, and I understand the need for that. So I also, the CCA suggestion, the purchasing the energy as a group for Wenham and ability to go to green energy, that is not at all related to getting metrics and measuring where we are in regard to our climate action goal, which is net zero by 2040. So it's sort of up to you guys what you want to do. But that was, we believe that was our mandate, to start figuring out where we are, what the plan is, and how we're going to get there. And it is very difficult. We need help doing it. I've been trying to figure it out for years and years, how you measure residential energy use and where it's coming from. We don't really know how to measure the solar that's coming through. We don't know how to offset that by oil and gas use. We don't know a lot of this stuff, and it's complicated. So Vicki came to me and asked me if we were interested in doing that when Climate Action West Cask, and I said yes. So it took us over 2.5 weeks to get a meeting together because we're a little discombobulated at summertime. So that's why it's so late. Are there any questions?
When is the grant due?
The grant due is due on Friday, but Vicki indicates she's able to write it easily enough. The other thing is we in the master plan, we also have a goal to achieve community-wide net zero carbon emissions by 2040, but it's community-wide, which is why I think this is an important grant. It gives us some more visibility into the residential use. We have the Mass Insight information on Wenham's municipal buildings, basic information, but we don't know how we're offsetting it by the library, solar, or any other thing we're doing. And also, if we are interested, which is also part of our mandate, like finding more grants and things like that, if we're interested in becoming climate leaders through the Green Communities grant division, that's the next level. We would be open for more grants and more things, and a higher level of what we're able to get and we're able to do. Having a climate action plan is one of the 3 things that our town, Wenham, would need to do in order to apply to become a climate leader. That's kind of a forward thinking, but a climate action plan, just given the fact that they require it to get to the next level of green communities, is something that all the towns are going to need.
So, Sue, this is what I'm going to say, and this is for my peers. This kind of feels like, the high school deferred maintenance for way too long, and it's not just the high school; it's the other schools as well. And this iron rail needs these improved windows. They just need it. And if we just kick the stone down the road, we're going to be back again trying to figure out how to fix iron rail because it leaks. I think so. It's a short-term issue that we should not pass up in terms of fixing iron rail. And if your goal is to get us energy, whatever, by 2040, something leads me to believe that you're probably going to have another opportunity for a grant in the next year, maybe year and a half. Does that make sense? And then, you know, my
I
peers,
understand what you're saying.
any thoughts, folks?
So my
Ben?
initial question,
Sorry, Deirdre.
Hey, Deirdre.
sorry. My initial question was, is the ceiling on this grant sufficient enough that we could request some funding for a consultant and some for Windows? I don't know what the Windows quote is, or if he's looking to use the entire budget ceiling. So that's one question. And then I guess the other question is in terms of Iron Rail. I mean, I certainly can understand the importance of the Windows, but where the future of Iron Rail is still uncertain, is it still, if we were to get the grant, is it still a worthwhile investment for the Windows, despite the fact that we don't know what the future of Iron Rail is?
Ben?
My question is, which of these two needs would be more achievable through a second grant? In other words, are there a range of grant opportunities that would be available to us in the future to get new windows at Iron Rail versus grant opportunities to achieve what we'd be seeking in the WCASC, I'm sorry, the EECBG grants, alphabet soup.
I asked Vicky that same question this morning when I called her to see if she was able to still write the grant. And she said that she doesn't know of anything for either at this point. I know the windows have been difficult to do, and it's not, I mean, building envelope is not such a sexy thing to do anymore, right? So I do understand it. I think it's a question of what I'm glad you're making the decision.
Steve, do you have any sense of that question?
No, similar, we've talked about it internally, that's that same question, and I think generally we don't know of any grants specifically for either project. However, I think that given the current push for climate change and green initiatives, it just seems that there would be more opportunity to a grant to out there for some sort of energy plan than for Windows. At least that's my thought.
I also had a question, if I may, Mr. Chair, just on process. Although I see Karen's hand. I didn't see that Karen's hand was up before, so Karen, you probably have had your hand up.
Where's my
Karen?
mute button? No, go ahead. Finish your thought, Ben. I'll go right after.
Okay. Thank you. So I watched watched and listened to the last climate action and sustainability committee meeting where this was addressed, and listened to what was a very intelligent discussion amongst the members. I was a little bit confused by Mr.
You're gonna say anger at what my votes are.
No. Sorry. Mr. Stoddard's, my apologies. I was a little confused by Mr. Stoddard's email to Steve, because the impression that I got, and Sue, you could correct me, I think process is important and maybe important in this decision too, but I just want to have a sense of how the process worked here. The impression I got was that your committee voted to support putting forward the letter that was put forward, and there was some discussion of editing of the letter and so on, and I think the draft that was.
Are we talking about the CCA letter? Are you talking about the CCA letter? Or
No.
the grant?
Talking about the letter you sent.
The grant letter.
Okay.
Right. So there was a draft grant letter that was discussed in the meeting. There was a vote of all the members there to move forward with that letter after some editing, And I presume there was, there definitely was some editing because it was a different letter. I could tell from the paragraph lengths and so on. And the impression I had was that the committee, was supporting this EECBG grant, but not to the exclusion of the window plan. I didn't get the sense that the committee realized that it was an either or. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the committee knew it was
No,
an either or.
We discussed that. We're in the original discussion of it. Yeah. And that's what we decided. We said we'd just let the board decide. That's your job.
Okay. All right. So I missed that part. I wasn't.
And,
Okay.
and Colby was saying that he wasn't sure which would be more important and what should we do. So they were aware of that for sure.
Okay. So that clarifies it for me. I wasn't exactly sure whether there was a communication breakdown somewhere along the way. And if there was, it probably was in my not understanding the full context of the meeting that I was watching, but that's helpful. I appreciate that.
The reason why we put forth this letter is because we're trying to do our job, right? And if we just say, oh, well, that's going on, we won't bother them with that. We're just trying to fulfill our mandate. And this is a good way we thought to do it. So there wasn't any let's push out the windows thing or anything.
Right. No, yeah, I didn't think that there was. That's helpful context to me. I just wanted to get a kind of an understanding of if everyone was on the same page in terms of what the choices were.
I believe they were. I mean, I believe they were.
Okay. Thank you.
Karen?
I actually will mimic some of the comments of several of my select board members. The first thing that came to mind to me when taking a look at Iron Rail was the question of exactly what the master plan for just Iron Rail is going to be. So is it really economical to be putting that type of support into the building? I'm not 100% sure. The other thing that comes back to is that the Climate Action Committee is truly helping affect the 1,100 houses that we have. The amount of people that support Iron Rail or the amount of people that attend Iron Rail is less than 100 houses. And so to me, it makes perfect sense to be able to go with the clean energy plan. Also knowing that Massachusetts in general is pushing for large amounts of support in windows and clean air process, I can't imagine that there wouldn't be another ability for them to be able to find another option to work to get the windows. I am in full support of the clean energy plan.
Gary?
Well, I also looked at the entire meeting of the Climate Action Committee, and it came out a little different viewpoint on that as to at the end they did vote to put forward this recommendation that we consider this. But I think talking to staff and the fact that for several years here, there has not been the opportunity to replace the windows with outside grant money. And certainly there, as I think Peter mentioned, that there's much larger opportunities to get the sustainability plan going with other grant money, given that this conservation block grant is only a sliver of what the committee is tasked with. The climate action charge was broad in scope, and I think as one of the members said that we need to have a climate action plan or outline first before we get into these individual areas. Certainly the aggregate electrical consortium, and now this looking at just energy is just slices. But as a select board, I'd like to see the full climate action plan and the focus on that first, rather than just taking the slivers here. So I think it's going to be a good payback. Whatever happens, the Iron Rail building is going to be on our books for foreseeable future, 2 or 3 years, and certainly we need to address the issues on those windows now. And here's one-time chance to get it done with the grant money. So that's the way I go.
Any further discussion?
I have
I'm
one.
torn. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Deirdre, go ahead.
I'm honestly torn on this, and I guess I'm still not clear what is, if there were more time, I would like to have heard from staff input, Vicky, Mike, and Kate Mallory, to get their sense also. But what does this grant get us in terms of windows? Is it a few windows? Is it all the windows? I mean, how far along?
16 out of 40 windows.
16 out of 40?
Yep. 16
And
of
that's if you use the entire budget ceiling of the grant application,
Yes.
is that correct?
Yep.
All right, that's helpful.
Ben?
It seems to me, and I'm torn on it too. I mean, these are both very worthy grants, and I think everyone's motivations are absolutely wonderful in all directions, and both things are needed. But it strikes me that the replacement of windows at Iron Rail is something that would fit pretty neatly in a grant application to the CPC under the historic preservation umbrella. I think that would win support at the CPC, and it would be an eligible project, I believe. So just throwing that out there.
Steve, thoughts on that one?
No, I mean, I do believe it to be an eligible use for sure of CPC funds, CPA funds, excuse me.
But would that mean that we would take money away from other things?
Well, yeah, there's only one pot of money, and at the end of the day, the decision has to be made whether to spend it on this or not, or on an alternative. And
So I still think we should stick with the iron. Oh, Gary?
Yeah, so the energy efficiency and conservation block grant, do we have details as to what portion of a climate action plan it would actually address? And is there any flexibility, or is this going to be focused on just energy efficiency and conservation, which we already know the town has pretty much run the course on those two areas as far as municipal buildings and such?
Am I supposed to answer that? Are you asking me?
No, I
Yeah.
think
Okay.
that's the question to the board that
Not particularly energy conservation. Well, it is energy conservation, but it's more, the plan is really to determine the level of fossil fuel energy the town, residential and municipal, is using now, how much they're feeding back through solar or any other green way, and then come to try to figure out how we get to that net zero place. That's the energy piece, which is also
yes, but have we confirmed that this grant covers that sort of effort, or whether it's focused just on conservation programs?
According to Vicky, the application for the grant is for, well, there's a number of things, but ours is the clean, community clean energy. I can't find it right now. I'm in the dark. Yeah. The community-based clean energy plan. So it would cover that exact thing. It would cover a different thing. Hamilton is going to apply for $50,000 to do a greenhouse gas emissions plan. So I think you can craft it any which way you're particularly interested in. I believe theirs is municipal only, and I'm maybe speaking out of turn, but that's what I understood. And Wenham would lean towards both municipal and residential. It's an outreach. Maybe it's a website. Maybe it's a whole metric plan and outreach and education. It's what we would ask the grant for. And it would need a consultant there. We'd have to find a consultant who would agree that we can craft a plan that would do all that. And not to throw a monkey wrench into this, but you also have to figure out which of the applications is going to get approved. You know, I don't know. What are they going to approve? Windows? Are they going to approve a climate action plan? I mean, I don't know.
Any comment on the windows? Steve?
No, I mean, we did apply for, right, the same clean energy plan a year and a half ago and did not get it. I don't know if that's an indication.
For the windows?
No, for the, my understanding is we applied for the grant for this clean energy plan about a year and a half ago. I'm not
Through
sure.
MVP.
Yeah.
Different grant mechanism, I believe.
Yeah, that was through, what was it? Municipal vulnerability preparedness. I don't know enough about it, so.
So,
See value in both. I mean, I'm glad I'm not making the choice.
I'm prepared to make a motion, Mr. Chair, if you'll entertain one.
okay,
I move that we continue with the application for the replacement of windows at Iron Rail.
Gary
second.
seconds.
Gary seconds. Discussion? I think we discussed it a lot. Okay, so take a vote. Peter says yes.
Karen says no.
Gary, yes.
Ben, yes.
I guess, yes.
Okay, so by a vote of 4-1, Iron Rail's it. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, Sue. All right, so old business. Continued discussion of FY25 goals and objectives. Do we have anything to look
Yeah,
at here?
we're pulling up the worksheet right now.
Okay.
See that okay?
Yep.
Yes.
It's huge. Can you just zoom out?
A little toggle on the bottom, Joe. I believe we are. Scroll down. So these are all the ones we've gone through, and I added the additional information. And we're currently on E, I believe. We keep scrolling down, Joe. We did technology, so we're on E, boards and committees. So these are existing goals that were discussed last year that are similar to other ones need, a little bit of, that the select board decided not to pick up and pursue for FY24. So, we'll have a little discussion on to, kind of redefine what the board was thinking and, whether you want to keep it around for further finalization or drop it off.
Gary?
So I think I got tasked last year on number 1. And so here's my status report. Well, I've pretty much gone through all the files down in the basement. And I'd like to thank Kristen Alexander in the town clerk's office. So we've done keyword searches on all the select board minutes going back, I think, about 3 decades. And I think we're at a point that some committee charges are missing in action. Most of them exist either in the bylaws or we have more recent copies of them. But I think we're faced with the situation I found in one select board minutes where it just said, here's the new committee, and we assign this select board member to sit down with them and tell them what we want. That was the amount of the charge. So I would say, by next month, I can provide you with a full spreadsheet of what we have and what we don't have, and giving at what we have that other than the most recent ones like the Veterans Committee, they all need to be updated anyhow. So that's the status report, and then we decide how we go forward with replacing missing or updating charges. Steve, can I ask a question? Do we
Sure.
have any expected timeline when we're going to get the town meeting minutes, the articles that need to go through the Attorney General back to us?
No, I don't have a timeline on that.
Right. All right.
So, Steve, I was with Diane at the function on last Wednesday, at Kirsten's house. And
Yeah.
Diane told me that she was going to do the town meeting minutes.
Yeah, she did indicate that if Kirsten couldn't get them done, that should take them over. So, but yeah, it's really just too up in the air to give a hard timeline. I'm not sure when they're going to be completed.
Okay. Any other comments on any of these boards and committees? We're complete. Sorry. Did I see somebody's hand up?
Just Gary again. If on number 2, the records review, perhaps if I could have 1 minute to give a little history there.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So back with Jamie Cologne's time, we did do I think Steve was there, a partial clean out of the basement for records. And we took out 80 box loads of surplus documents. But there remains, especially in the police cage, the fire cage, a very large effort to sort through what is there, what needs to be retained. Most everything, I think, in the town clerk's office is now digitized, other than for some of the large older documents in the safe. But minutes we have scanned, and a lot of the other stuff is done. But if we're going to do this, it's well beyond the current staff's capabilities time-wise, and probably well beyond the availability of using tax write-off volunteers to get portions of this done. And certainly, particularly, I believe the police department records do need to have, Steve, you can back me up, there has to be a trusted agent that goes through those records as they're sensitive materials.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
Define a trusted agent?
You're just like a records manager. Generally, it's the clerk that will go through and verify what it is and whether it can be disposed of, all of that.
As some of the police records, involve investigation materials that may or may not have gone the full length to action or whatever. So there are privacy concerns on that as well. So it just has to be, I believe someone that's sworn in to, not reveal anything that's sensitive.
Gary, how far back are you going? And how far back should we go?
Well, the state archives requires that you maintain certain records in perpetuity, such as, cemetery records. Uh, Kirsten is much better
Tax
to
commitments.
speed on the archives, but 20 years for employee pay records in case there's questions. Certainly, the select board minutes are perpetual as well, and they currently, I think, have 8 file drawers in the town clerk's office, and there's a couple more plus tapes, videos, VCR, and hard drives in the basement. And certainly, if we want our committees to work effectively, we ought to have some sort of organization that says, here, new chairman, here's your file drawer, and here's the whole history of, the cemetery commission, or here's the whole cemetery of wish. And that does not exist currently. Things are spread out and not recorded. Not to mention that we also have, as a result of the rebuilding of the town hall many years ago, that we have probably 60 linear feet of shelf space of records still sitting at the library in their climate control area that have not been inventoried. So this is a big job.
So I'm not sure where that, hearing from you, Gary, at how daunting a series of tasks remain on this, makes me think that it's not a practical priority, over the next year or two, because we don't have the resources to do it. But it sounds like it may be, if it's some kind of medium-term priority, it probably should be analyzed with an eye towards, again, I hate to keep going back to CPA, but to the extent these are historic records, maybe there's some grant money or some appropriation that could be made to hire the appropriate team to tackle, one or more of those locations.
And I believe there has been CPC money in the past to do I think they use that for the town reports. The whole history of those have been
And I
done.
believe they just gave money to the Wenham Museum to do some records maintenance.
So maybe just something that we need to continue to think about, and a budget, maybe after the next year or two of high demand items that we can, just keep this on the back burner and know it's something that needs to be done. But we'll continue just to see what we can get done with the volunteers in certain areas.
Gary, would it make sense to just put a list of, like, we need to do these files first, then these files, then these files, and then what approximately size it?
Yeah, I think the town clerk, as the records officer, can probably do that, give us the priorities, and we can, just go down with a ruler and measure linear feet of shelf space currently being used, or numbers of boxes.
Okay.
All right.
Any more discussion on this topic? All right. So where are we in terms of? Are there any other matters that may have not been anticipated by the chair? Discussion only? All right. Gary?
Yeah, I see me talking a lot tonight, but I was wondering if Steve, we had that huge omnibus legislative package go through at the end of the session last week, and I know Margaret's been building some stuff on ADUs, but can we get any information back to the select board on what in that big bill actually is going to affect the town for
Yeah, so we
tax
just got,
changes?
we only got obviously the ADUs, but then KP Law just gave us a kind of a briefing on that today. And we asked Robin and Lauren are putting together some implications directly for Wenham, like as far as like what we're going to do for our zoning and rewriting. So that's definitely to come.
There was a lot in there, a lot in the sort of the land use and development space. Almost all of it uniformly geared towards making it easier to develop housing. There was a elimination of the doctrine of merger, which is a zoning concept that sometimes prohibits buildable lots. And it wasn't a complete elimination of that, but a partial elimination. So there's definitely a lot in there. I'd be definitely interested in reading KP Law's summary on it.
All right. Should we move to minutes? I went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sets of minutes. And I didn't see any major issues.
It's really great to have Catherine back.
It sure is.
She's not on tonight's meeting, is that right? I didn't see her on the Zoom, which means she'd probably be
She-
taking the minutes off of HW Cam, or is she here?
Yeah, we record it. I didn't see her here tonight, but we record them and we'll send her the
Yeah.
video. Excuse me.
All right, without further discussion, I'm going to make a motion that we accept the draft minutes of executive session April 23rd, 2024, May 7th, 2024, May 18th, 2024, OS June 04, June 4th, 2024, June 10th, 2024, and 6/18/2024.
Just one minor correction, Peter. I think you said for the third executive session minutes, May 18th, and I believe it's June 18th.
June 18th, 2024.
Second as amended.
All right, we'll vote. Deirdre, you
Ben,
want to
yes.
start? Yeah,
Deirdre,
go
yes.
ahead. Peter, yes.
Karen, yes.
Gary, yes.
Okay, we're going to, I move that we adjourn this meeting of August 13th at 8:06 p.m. to reconvene on August 27th at 6:30. That's my
Second.
motion. Second. All right, so I'm not going to ask if there's going to be any discussion, but Peter votes yes.
Deirdre, yes.
Gary, yes.
Ben, yes.
Karen, yes.
And some of us have 9 o'clock tomorrow, Thursday, right? For the Manchester
Yep.
tour.
Yep. At Manchester Memorial. Let me know if you need an address or anything. right off
Karen,
exit
Karen in
15.
bed, I'm just telling you, if you have the chance, you want to see this school. It's ridiculous.
I've
It
had
really
the
is.
luxury of being a parent that has to go in and out of Cutler.
No,
So,
I'm talking about
oh, I
Manchester
thought you were talking about
Memorial.
today.
Manchester Memorial Elementary School it'll just blow you away. And that's exactly what Eric's trying to build here. So anyway. All right,
Thank you.
folks, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. But
Thanks, Jim.